Hello and welcome to another midweek Wardies Waffle. Well, actually it's not midweek, it's end of week because it's Friday night tonight. So this one is from the NFU conference as well. Last night I put up Richie Sunak's speech. Hope you watched that. If you didn't, please go back and look at that. That was update number 230, I think it was. Tonight I have got the chairman of the Environment Agency, Alan Lovell. He gave a talk at the conference this week, and I managed to get a question into him as well, and just said a few things about Boston and about the rivers, and not supporting Henry and getting the water move quick enough. So you'll see that question as well. But a lot of things in this update that I was quite astounded at, and anyway, I'll let you watch it and then comment at the end. So hope you enjoy this update, or maybe not enjoy, it's not the right word, but you find it useful anyway. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you at the end.
Antarctic ice. And as we all know, increases in temperature have a disproportionate effect on humidity. That's relevant to us in the Environment Agency because although we do some other important work on waste management and air quality, our primary focus is water. Flood, drought, and water pollution. And of course, all three of those are vital to you as well. Let's start with flood. I know that many of you have experienced devastating flood and drought events, and I know that it can take a huge financial and emotional toll upon you and your families, including some devastating long-term mental health impacts, and we never forget that. This winter has been appalling. I have been around the country a fair bit. Top left is a 1,600-acre farm in Lincolnshire, entirely underwater, apart from the farm and farm buildings on a little island in the middle. This winter's storms were the 3 months at the end of last year were the wettest that we've had in this country since 2000, and the third wettest since 1871. I am very proud of how the Environment Agency dealt with those floods, but I'd also like to pay tribute to the NFU, who worked closely with us to help warn and inform farmers during those record events, and to farmers yourselves for the support you provided for local communities in those times of flooding. We do want to help you to adapt, improve resilience, and thrive despite the greater climate challenges that are coming. Protecting farmland is one of the key outcomes for our 5.2 billion over 6 years flood and coastal investment programme. We know there's a perception that the vast majority of our investment in flood defences goes to protect urban populations. And it's true that our schemes must be measured against impact on people, and quite right too. But that does not mean that we don't protect rural communities. And as the Prime Minister mentioned this morning, approximately 40% of our schemes and 45% of the value investment better protects rural communities. And since 2015, our investments have better protected over 400,000 hectares of agricultural land. One aspect is watercourse maintenance, which you care about. The NFU is calling for a proactive management plan for the Environment Agency, controlling watercourses and flood defences. But it is important to us to recognise that our watercourses also fulfil other roles, including water for obstruction, corridors for nature, and providing opportunity for navigation and leisure. It's not as simple as it may sound. In 22-23, We spent over £200 million maintaining flood risk assets, and I'm glad to say that rose by 25 million this year. Our asset management vision and plans programme are published online, and we really do prioritise work, maintenance work on assets that provide the greatest flood risk benefits. We know that many of you would like to see more dredging. It's not as clear-cut as it seems, for a number of reasons. One, that the amount of extra volume that you can create doesn't actually go very far compared with the vast areas of water that we have suffered. And second, I'm sure you will see this, that unless you dredge or get open water all the way to the sea, it really doesn't help very much. It's not always the best solution. We do take it seriously. We consult with locals, the IDBs and local farmers, local communities about whether it's the best way ahead, and we shall continue to do so. But there is a limit to it. Demaining is another thing that you would like to see, and I think many of you will have heard my views on this. I favour it. I think that generally the use of local experience, expertise and equipment is good. But again, it's not quite as simple as that. We carried out a series of pilots in 2018, and across those locations it did generally do a good job and encouraged us to look for others. But there are challenges, including financial responsibility. The process remains complex and time-consuming, but trust me, we will be looking at it, and I shall back it where we reasonably can. But there are other ways. Public sector cooperation agreements, particularly where we work with the internal drainage boards, are really important. We have 40 of those in place, and there will be more to come. And the announcement today is incredibly helpful on this. £75 million has been allotted by the government today to go through to work for us to work with IDBs, both to repair some of their equipment which has been damaged in the recent floods, but also to do more looking forward. And that can include opportunity for demaining. So I was quite delighted to hear that announcement from the Prime Minister this morning. I also want to make sure that you know that you can do it if you want to. You, the riparian owners, have the responsibility for looking after these rivers. We have powers as well, but you can carry out appropriate maintenance. We shall encourage that wherever we can. I know that, of course, on major schemes, you need permits, and we can talk about permitting later. I think we are on the case with that. But above all, use common sense. You use common sense on work, and we shall use common sense too. So a big issue is using land for flood storage. In some locations, that's the best solution. And of course, as your President has already mentioned, you feel that it is often provided at great cost and that you want to be paid fairly for that, with agreements put in place to enable it to run smoothly. We will support that where flood storage areas are seen to be appropriate as part of a flood risk management solution. But to be clear, we can't use public flood money for areas that are already natural floodplains. There are other routes, particularly through elms, which can support that, but we can't use government flood money for it. But I was in Lincolnshire recently with the Secretary of State. He asked us to take a look at this and how we can work with local groups and internal drainage boards to see where we can take it further forward. Working with farmers and landowners is a vital part of our flood and coastal erosion management strategy roadmap up to 2026. And it's a priority for us to help farmers and land managers to adapt their practices to be more resilient to the changing climate. And with the NFU, we've committed to working together to, quote, establish a rural resilience partnership focused on helping farmers and land managers adapt to a changing climate. and we're really looking forward to seeing what we can collectively achieve as we develop and plan the partnership with the other partners identified here. We need to drive innovation in this field. In September 2023, we launched a 25 million ring-fence fund for natural flood management. It was open to farmers and to local communities. I'm delighted to say that there was a fantastic response to it, and the successful projects will be announced on Friday, but we are quite delighted with the response received. We're also investing £150 million in the Flood and Coastal Resilience Innovation Programme to develop, test and implement practical and innovative resilient actions in 25 local areas. And one of those wonderful projects, Reclaim the Rain, is a nice example of a primarily flood project which also can help water resources. It's working with large-scale food producers. And I would like to move on to the subject of water resources, because although much of attention at the moment is focused inevitably on flood and on water quality, it's actually water resources that most bothers me. Combination of population growth, climate change, and movement of people to the southeast could leave us 4 billion litres a day short in this country of water. That is a horrifying prospect. That we do see a way of dealing with it. Roughly, I'm using big numbers here, but trying to deal with that 4 billion litres a day, we can see that new capital schemes, reservoirs and water transfer systems can provide 2 billion. If we can fix 1/3 of the leakage, that'll save 1. And if we can drive down consumption from about 140 litres a day to 110, that will save 2. But none of those is easy. That makes for 5, but I would not want to rely on it. And if we don't get there, then inevitably we will be putting pressure on not just on people drinking, but on businesses and on you. So we must all work together to do everything we can to conserve our water. So I'm thoroughly in favour of water abstractor groups, delighted with the funding for on-site reservoirs, and encourage any of you who are not engaged in that already to take a good look at it. We are also trying to be as flexible as we possibly can over abstraction during crises of flood and drought. We do encourage you to be proactive in seeking abstraction licenses. Try not to leave it until everybody else is, because that does test us on the permitting. But we are trying to be flexible, particularly where there's an active flood warning in place, or where we're in officially declared flood conditions. As I mentioned earlier, our permitting, we are well aware, has been way behind. We have caught up over the last month. We've made huge strides over the last 15 months. We are now up to our standard, which is achieving a 75% within a prescribed timescale. We got to 78% last month. Is that good enough? It isn't, but we are on the case and we shall be trying to do more. So I trust you will get permits quicker, but nevertheless, give us a chance, try and do it earlier. Now I'm going to go on to the subject of pollution, and this will be an uncomfortable slide. For a start, you will be familiar with this data, which is reflected in the DEFRA's Plan for Water, that the pollution from agriculture and from rural land, let's say, is roughly equal to that coming from the water industry. And some of the pictures around here do not make for nice viewing. I'm sure that nobody here has farmers eating trough in the middle of a river, or allows such seepage from their silage, or indeed allows silt to pour into a river to that extent. But some people are doing it. I want to talk, though, a bit about the water industry. Water companies have not been very good at this, is about as much of an understatement as I could say. They have been appalling, and they know it. And there is going to be very significant investment in the water industry over the next 5 years. Something like 3 times the investment that we have had in the current 5-year period. I think that there has been underinvestment in the water industry ever since Victorian times, for 125 years. It will take a long time to put this right, but there will be a big, big increase over the next 5 years, and that will continue. In addition, we have just announced today, as it happens, that we are going to take on up to 500 new extra people to increase our regulation of the water industry, and we will be looking to make 4,000 inspections next year and 11,000 the year after. That is restoring the position to something like what it was like before the cuts at the beginning of 10, 15 years ago. So, and I am optimistic. I shall stick my neck out here. I am actually optimistic that a combination of the immense public and political pressure, second, the investment that is going to start, and third, our efforts by way of regulation will make a difference to the water industry, and that 36% will come down, and we'll be a bit above that this year. Interesting perhaps to see the number of improvement actions. It's running at about 1.4 improvement actions per visit. I think it is a KPI for us and for all of you that should reduce. On the other hand, I am pleased that that action is being taken promptly. As you see, a number of improvement actions completed within the timescale here, so that's good. What do we find? Won't come as any surprise. Failure to separate clean and dirty water, slurry stores, silage camps, lack of a nutrient management plan, soil testing. Some of that's easy. Let's make sure that we are all have got proper nutrient management plans and soil testing. There's no excuse for that. I know there are some cost issues, but we've got to do some of these things better. And I stress that our regulation has been advice-led, that has been a tradition, and I confirm that it will remain. And here is just a nice example of some pure advice to a farmer on silage effluent leakage and the building of a new clamp in accordance with new standards. Our officers are mindful of the great pressures that you are under. And we've held events in some areas to communicate how to handle an inspection, and we shall continue to do so. But equally, I think you will understand that in some cases, we will need to take enforcement action. Environment land management schemes were covered this morning. I think it's great that the Prime Minister did commit to retaining the 2.4 billion, and we advise DEFRA on many of those aspects, and we shall continue to do so. I started by talking about the EA priorities: flood, drought and water quality. And I don't need to say to this audience that healthy soils full of organic matter with strong infiltration rates for water are great for flood resilience because they avoid runoff, are great for drought because water is stored and reduces the need for irrigation, and great for water quality because they can absorb the nutrients and limit erosion. And of course, soil is also the best medium for storing carbon. It supports biodiversity, and it's great for food production. Let's do it together. We know that the NFU also feels passionately about it. You've said as much in the 2021 Foundation of Food report on soil. Sadly, our State of the Environment Soil report in 2019 showed that in England and Wales, much of the soil is subject to compaction and erosion, and climate change will in many cases make that worse. We are ambitious on this. The Environment Improvement Plan challenged us to have 40% of agricultural soil into sustainable management by 2028 and 60% by 2030. We are working with them on that. I hope the government will respond positively to the EFRA Committee's Soil Health Report of December 2023. A tremendous amount of good work is happening on our soil in universities. I was at a farming conference in Devon last week, and it was great to see the dialogue with some of the soil professors there, with some of the farmers, but also some frustration. The soil professors were saying, gosh, you've just been talking to me something, I wish I'd known that when I started this scientific experiment. So my message there is, as they were trying to say, please do engage with scientists in universities. And the opposite applied as well. Many of the farmers who had really done a good job on their soil wished that they had done work early on to get a solid baseline for their efforts so that they could really see the improvement. So I must encourage you all. We all know that our information on soil isn't good enough. It's a complicated subject, but the DEFRA Soil team is seeking to simplify the categories of soil, and we're working with a wide range of partners to consider a unified approach. So I do hope that we can make a difference here. I urge everyone to be a good steward of the environment and also a good steward of public money. That means that our decisions about how we spend money, for example, on managing watercourses, will not always align with what you think we should do. Second, you don't like our inspections. It's understandable, but trust me, we are doing our best. We are really training new people who are starting. We're putting them all through mental health training and trying to get them as well equipped. We're also taking on a more senior level than we were previously. We are doing our best on that. And third, there will be occasions when we have no choice but to prosecute businesses and individuals for serious breaches of environmental policies and procedures. And in the interest of the good reputation of the sector as a whole, I am sure that you would expect nothing less. I started by outlining that the EA's principal focus is on water, enabling climate-resilient places and creating cleaner and healthier rivers. You are our most important partners in delivering that endeavour. We stand beside you in recognition of your challenges, both financial and environmental. And we seek to work with you on the twin priorities of food production and environmental well-being. We help where we can with advice, investment, and innovation programs. We really appreciate the good work that you do. We really appreciate the partnerships that we have with you. And we look forward to working with you to do a whole lot more. Thank you very much for having me.
Hello again, Alan. And the way you remember, we met in early January on my godson's farm, and some of what I've just heard today has left me absolutely speechless, to be honest. That doesn't happen very often, as some people here know. I would also like you, please, to take on Henry's plight. His father died a year ago. I am his godson, and I was asked by his father to look after his best interests and to take care of him throughout the rest of his life. I am doing my best with that, but I cannot do that when you treat him like a doormat, like you are doing at the minute. Please, please, will you meet with him? And I'll see you afterwards to get a date in the diary, to go and see him and see the distress, what you're causing. I'm just going to pick out 2 points. You said you aim to steward the environment. That is an absolute joke with the amount of water you've left on his land. The riverbank still has a hole in it. We are told to look after the environment. You mentioned soils in your presentation there. You've got thousands and millions of tons of water sat on that land, killing worms, killing rabbits, killing wildlife. There are dead rabbits in hedgerows 2 metres high. That is caused by the Environment Agency. And I think for once, you are about to live up to the words or the letters EA from what we've seen by coming the Enforcement Agency. So, just going on to Boston now, and you said, Minette, we wanted some solutions, that's the word I was looking for. I've got one here for you. The River Witham carries a lot of Lincolnshire's water through Boston before heading into the Wash and out to sea. And after visiting Boston only last week, it's clear there are huge problems there. The new barrier is causing a restriction to water getting out to sea. Why was the new lock not installed at the side of the barrier, which finances were given to do that? And that has meant that pumps are not switched on from the South 40 foot. In fact, they've actually been decommissioned. And that means other locks cannot be used. So in short, there is a massive bottleneck at Boston that means the water cannot get away. And everybody, don't forget, there's a third of Lincolnshire below sea level. We need the water out to sea as quick as possible. Thank you, Minette. Thank you very much.
I heard that, and I don't understand that. When I was there, it was also wet, so I don't understand what's happened there. We will take a good look at that.
If you could go up there and see it, because it is the most extraordinary situation. Clearly, there is something really broken in the system. The flood storage area is dry, and his farm is underwater.
I do not understand that. Okay.
So you'll go and you'll meet with him.
Yeah.
Thank you. Caroline.
Flood money for natural floodplains. Should we? Is a reasonable question, and one that's what the Secretary of State has indicated that he would like to review. It's clearly a longer term project than the ones I've mentioned, but I mentioned here 7 which we can do quickly, and that's what he is anxious for me to stress, that we'll do these quickly whilst we take a longer term look at whether we should be doing more for storage in areas that have been badly hit again and again.
Because I think it's untenable, isn't it, going forwards? The point I made that we can't expect these businesses to store water for nothing when they're protecting houses and businesses. But look, I don't want to. We've got all these questions, and I'm using up all that time myself.
So there you go. You can see now why I said I was speechless. Anyway, just a couple of things. The repairs to the river at Henry's has started this week. I've been over today and got a few shots of that, so we'll look at that. That's a temporary repair. But also, I just wanted to say as well, I've got a bit of feedback that some of the local Environment Agency guys on the ground haven't been that complimentary and that happy with some of my comments. I apologise if I've offended anybody. I know you do your best on the ground and you work very closely with the IDBs. But it's the Environment Agency that aren't managing the rivers, so that's what needs to change. Anyway, that's enough for this update now. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you on Sunday, and I'll get back next week with posting more from the conference, which there's quite a lot of individual presentations and talks to put up, which I'll maybe explain on Sunday if I've got time. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. That's it now until Sunday morning at 8 AM, and Sunday's update will purely be on farm stuff. There'll be nothing at all from the conference. It'll be purely from the farm here. So thanks for watching. See you Sunday morning.